So I'm going to start my Futurists in 3D project, and that is the EDIO 2.6 course. And so I have some of my materials here. I have my mixed media pad that has my sketches and uh, and my plate, my texture rubbing plate, and my paper clay. And then I just have this tool for my ceramic studio, my pottery studio. But I mean, you could definitely use um, pencils or butter knife or a fork or any of these kind of tools in order to sculpt with. So anything that you have handy, anything you have handy will do. Now, there's just a couple of requirements that you want to keep in mind when you're doing your sculpture. Because it's a sculpture, it has to work from all angles. So make sure that you're turning your sculpture as you're working on it. Also, some of the requirements as far as it being a futurism sculpture is that it has to have texture, it has to have hollows, and it has to have ridges. So the hollows are holes or shapes, that create negative space in your sculpture, and they are kind of like the idea of what a shape would be in a drawing. So a hollow is kind of correlates to a shape, and then ridges are kind of like lines. They are three-dimensional lines. So we'll just talk about that in class and work on that now. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my clay, and hopefully you haven't opened up your clay because it'll dry out in a day or two. So don't open it until you're ready to work on it. Take it out of the packet, and it's just a nice white block of modeling clay. So you want to kind of squish it around with your hands to warm it up and get it more pliable. The more you work with it and squish it around, the more pliable it'll get. And that's kind of like what you want. It's also really handy to have a container of water close by, a little cup of water, and that will help you keep it from drying out. You can just rub a little water on the surface whenever you see it starting to dry out. Okay, so I'm just going to keep working my clay until it loosens up a bit. All right, so I also have my original drawing, my original plate of my two poses. So this is the my figurines cut out and glued down. You can see the head glued down so well. And this is the sheet that I took my texture rubbing from. And this is my textured rubbing that I took. So basically I have some movement in the legs and the arms to show, that like stop action motion kind of idea. And then from this, I did a sketch of what I want my sculpture to look like, because I think it's a lot easier if you have some ideas put down on paper instead of just starting from scratch with a block. So let me show you the drawing that I did. So this is what I'm gonna work towards for my sculpture. And basically what I did was I abstracted my my drawing, my textured rubbing drawing. So I didn't want to do the whole thing because, I'm also trying to have a weighted balance. And, this guy is really tall and skinny. So I wasn't thinking that this would be such a great example of weighted balance. So I wanted to use just basically the arms that are moving around because I think that shows a lot of action. And the torso, I just took the torso shape, which is kind of like almost like a heart shape here, if you can see it. And I turned the torso this way and then took the arms and kind of put it on the top. So that's how I got, this is the torso shape. And then these are kind of like the arms moving around. And I think that that has a lot of movement to it. And here are my ridges. So I'm going to put some ridges that kind of float around and up these kind of like arms. I made the arms look a little bit more like flames. And then here are my hollows. So I have a hollow here in the center, which I hope is going to kind of help that energy move around like this and then up this way like that. Right. And then also, if you were to turn this around sideways, I want to have some little flames kind of shooting out from the side so that it kind of works from all angles. Okay, so I'm going to get started on that. So I'm going to use I think um about 2/3 of my clay, maybe a little bit more than half for the base to have that weighted balance. So I'm just going to separate those amounts. So this is going to be the base. I think maybe I'll take a little bit more off. This is going to be the base, and then this is going to be kind of what I hope to be the arms that come off the top. So I'm gonna take this clay that I have left over that I'm not going to be working with right now, and I'm going to put it back into this plastic bag that came in because I just want to stop it from drying out for now. So I'll just put that to the side. And this guy, I'm going to just roll it around on my tabletop to make it into a nice smooth sphere that I can then work with a little bit. So I'm just going to work on getting this to be the right shape. And I'm going to turn off the video and I'll come back when I get it to be looking more like that base. All right, so I have my base kind of shape made. And I think that this clay is a little on the dry side, and I hope that yours isn't the same, but it keeps cracking. So I just keep adding pressure to it. So I have this tool, but like I said, you could use a butter knife or even, like this is a Sharpie marker and just keep compressing it so that it kind of like stays together. Otherwise, it's really crumbly. So yeah, these little tools, anything, pencil, really help in keeping it together. Anyway, now I'm going to start to add on these arms, these flamey arm looking things, and then I'll come back as soon as I get that done. So I'm starting to add on my armage, my little arms, my little, like my flamey kind of arms. So I am going to, I think instead of using water, I think it will be very helpful. I'm actually going to start to incorporate some glue into this sculpture because my clay is so dry um, that I think if I work with a little bit of glue and some pressure, I can get it to kind of like start sticking together. But I'm having a hard time with cracking and moisture. So that seems to be helping a lot just because the Elmer's glue is on the wet side, but it's also a little bit of an adhesive and using a tool to kind of like push it and mush it together, I think is going to be the best bet. So I have a pretty bad crack happening right there. So I'm just going to squeeze a little bit of Elmer's glue in that area and then work it together with this tool. And again, don't worry if you don't have one of these tools. You could use a butter knife or back of a spoon or anything like that. Um, I have to keep making sure that I'm not changing the shape of my base by holding it and kind of mushing everything together because I think that could really happen easily because I'm just holding it and creating all this pressure. So just be careful, just kind of be careful a little bit of that. And okay, I'm gonna pause the recording so it doesn't become too long. So I have the main shape of my sculpture, and I'm just adding on some like little like sticks or arms or whatever you want to call them, appendages that stick out from the main body because I want it to work, from every angle. So I'm just trying to get that in. My clay is really drying out quickly, so I'm having a hard time working as quick as I need to. Um, Maybe you could just keep adding water to the surface and rubbing in the water, but I'm having a lot of cracking going on. Um, so that's a bit of a bummer. Um, I've added a lot of glue to the surface. I don't know if you can see some of the glue, and I kind of rubbed it in. It seems to be making the surface of the clay a little bit more stickier so that I can add and subtract things from it. But I like the way it's turning out. I'm just going to add a couple more of these little side angles. And the way I'm doing that is I'm just taking a little ball of clay and so like a little ball of clay, and then I'm just squeezing it into almost like a teardrop shape, and then sticking it on at an angle, and then just using a tool to kind of like smush it in to the main part of the clay, and then just kind of shaping it with my fingers. But I am definitely finding that the that putting Elmer's glue on the surface is helping a lot. So hopefully that works for you. And I'm just going to add a couple more of these kind of horny looking arms or whatever you want to call them, and then I'm going to pretty much be done mine. So yeah, I hope that if you are finding that your clay is very dry, just add some moisture to it and try to add a little bit of the Elmer's glue to the surface. I think it really helps a lot. Okay, I'm gonna finish up this a little bit and I'm gonna come back to show you. I'm gonna add some ridges to it. So I have my hollows, my shapes. Here's my hollow. There's a bunch of hollows up here too. And and I'll be back. I'll be back in a little bit to show you the rest. Okay, so I got my basic shape, um, and the lighting here is a bit bright, so it's hard to see, but I'm going to try to move it around at all different angles so that you can see what's happening. The sun is very bright. Anyway, I'm gonna see if I can add some that kind of helps. You can kind of see a little bit better. I'm gonna add some ridges. So I'm just going to use this tool. You can use like a butter knife or something like that. But basically, I'm going to draw into the tool. I'm going to see if I can get it to be not so bright in here. And so you can see what I'm doing better. Hold on a second. Okay, so I blocked off some of the light, so I think you can see my sculpture a little bit better. I'm just going to hold it this way. And so I have all these kind of arms sticking out all over the place. So now I'm just going to take this tool here and I'm just going to add in some ridges. So basically I'm just carving in. I want to make it look like kind of like bark, but I'm going to smooth it out a little bit so that it doesn't just look like, I sliced into it. It looks like it actually is part of the form. So just smoothing it out a little bit. And whatever technique that you find works for you. That's the way to go. Now, when we finish this project, I'm gonna add more glue because I really think that the glue helps the surface. So I just put a line of glue around it, and then I use my tool to kind of work it in, and it instantly makes it easier to work with. So hopefully you can kind of do that too. All right, so I think I'm gonna start to wind it down and let it dry a little bit because it is very, 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 very wet because I added tons, but I'm gonna keep adding these ridges to help the flow, right? That's what we're doing. We're using ridges to create flow. All right, so I think that's it for me for now. This is my future sculpture, very abstract. And then the next step is to let it dry and paint it. All right. Thank you, everyone.